I think that one of the loneliest experiences as a woman is becoming so good at understanding everybody else that you forgot how to understand yourself. Hey everybody, welcome to the Eldest Daughter Diaries. My name is Ascenda and I am talking about all things eldest daughter related. You know how to read a room instantly, and you know when the tone shifts. You can feel tension before anyone ever says anything, and you know when someone's upset before they ever even admit it. But when someone asks, what do you need? Your mind goes blank, or you literally don't know what to say. And it's not because you don't have needs, but it's because you spent so long prioritizing everyone else's that when it comes to you, it's so much easier to just minimize or say that you've got it. And it's better if you actually manage it yourself than relying on someone else who's absolutely going to disappoint you. And it doesn't happen by accident. I think a lot of daughters, especially eldest daughters, were conditioned from a very young age in childhood to become responsible for everybody else's needs. We became emotional caregivers, mediators, surrogate parents, therapists, tiny emotional adults. And when that happens, you learn something very dangerous. You learn that your safety comes to attuning to everybody else's emotional needs. And then you learn to abandon yourself to maintain emotional connection. You silence yourself to maintain peace. You shape shift to avoid rejection. You become hyper aware of others while becoming more and more disconnected from your own body, anger, truth, and experience. And the scary part? Most people will praise you for it. You've probably been called mature your whole life, strong, empathetic, intelligent, while internally you're completely depleted. So today I want to talk about some of the eldest daughter wounds: people-pleasing, emotional mirroring, and self-abandonment, and why so many women feel secretly exhausting from carrying everyone else's emotional weight. And honestly, this is more of a conversation between myself and women that are finally discovering that this is not their fault, not their responsibility, and not their weight to carry. Let's unpack the good girl as a survival response. I think many oldest daughters become hyper-functional from a very early age because they realize that if I stay helpful, easy, useful, I will be loved. And when you're a child, that makes sense. Children adapt to survive. So maybe you became a golden child. You were emotionally mature for your age. You became a surrogate parent. You became the therapist friend or the over-giving partner and the one who never caused problems. But underneath all that is a little girl that learned that their emotions were inconvenient, that their own needs create stress, that other people matter more, and that love is something to be earned by being useful. And then this leads into a very specific type of womanhood, a woman who anticipates everybody's needs automatically, someone that feels guilty resting. You might be anxious to disappoint people or anxious in trusting other people in fear that they're going to disappoint you. I'm guilty of being someone that over-explains constantly and also overworks, overgives, self-abandons in hopes that that will be enough to not be abandoned by others, in hopes that that will be enough to be loved and make someone stay, whether that is romantically or family or in friends. That is something that I have always been guilty of doing. And I'm not certain where exactly in my childhood this began, but I know that growing up with an avoidant mother and emotionally mature, abusive father, I learned very quickly to read the room and constantly be scanning for danger, threats. If my father came home from work after a big day and then decided to use drugs or drink, I was constantly walking on eggshells to make sure that I performed whatever role I had to make sure that I wasn't in the line of danger, or to try and be the surrogate husband or therapist that my mother may have needed to survive in that relationship and actually show up as a mother to me and my siblings. And this also plays out constantly in my friendships and also my relationships. One example of that is when I am away from my partner for a few days. At first, I genuinely believed that it was like signs of autism showing, but when he would come home or I would come home, I genuinely need about a day to get used to him again, to get to know him again. I've been with my partner for 4 years now. I know this man, and this man is a safe, loving, calm man, and yet I'm watching, I'm observing, and for the first few years, we genuinely were thinking, okay, maybe is this like examples of being on the spectrum or something like that, and then it really wasn't until about 2 months ago where I'm laying in bed and I'm like, oh, I am just scanning. I am really taking my time to sink my teeth in and attune to where emotionally he is at to just make sure that he's safe. And I think also within my family, it was very quick for my parents to flip a switch and be really happy and jokey one second, and then the next, it's quite dangerous, especially for a child to be in that situation and be very volatile. So because of that, I'm like scanning and watching my partner to just be like, is it gonna break? Is the illusion gonna shatter? Am I safe? And as soon as we realize that, it makes it so much easier for him to give me the space that I need, and for myself as well to regulate, calm down, and assure myself that I'm safe, I know this person, and I'm in my own home. I don't have to be hypervigilant all the time and constantly attuning to other people's needs. And also this looks like me breaking our traditional roles within my family and with my siblings that I'm still in the process of navigating. It's not easy, it's very challenging and difficult, and it's really painful and full of so much guilt. But it's something that I have always done. I'm constantly anticipating other people's needs and behaving in a way that I wish someone would show up for me like that. And on that, I really didn't realize until adulthood that hypervigilance is not just because I'm special and I'm gifted. In reality, it's just a coping mechanism from my turbulent childhood, which brings me to hypervigilance becoming identity. And what's heartbreaking is that hypervigilance stops feeling like something that you do and more something that you are. You become known as the strong one, the one that everybody else can rely on when it comes crumbling down, and just hyper independent. And while all of this is beautiful and a really important skill, it becomes exhausting when this is your entire identity and it wasn't built from a healthy environment and a sense of self-confidence and secure independence, but rather from survival. Because when you grow up and your nervous system is constantly scanning for, is everyone okay? Does anybody need anything? How can I make sure that everybody else's needs are met so then I'm not in danger, or that I won't be needed more than what I can already afford? Like you're constantly budgeting for this emotionally. If you just constantly take care of everybody else, then hopefully you can be left alone with some time to just begin to be okay with yourself. And a lot of women don't realize how disconnected they are from themselves until they hit burnout and complete breakdown levels of exhaustion. This looks like being emotionally numb, resentful, and unable to identify what they actually want. And that's because they've spent years in becoming experts in other people. And for me, this is my entire existence. I spent 10 years being chronically ill. I dealt with chronic fatigue syndrome, which I was diagnosed with at 13 because I was raising a family that I did not choose to have. And also, then that was upgraded to fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition. And I was living in chronic pain in my body every day, felt like hell because I was carrying so much resentment of a childhood, a life that was stolen from me, and then slammed with other responsibilities that should not have been put on a child. And I know that it's built resilience, and I'm so grateful for who I am today, but truly, it's not fair, it's not right, it's not okay, and this is the downfall of my parents. So I spent years of my life kind of just treating it myself like I was Sleeping Beauty. I spent years bubble wrapping myself because there were so many moments where I physically just thought I would die. I was taking care of so much. I was working myself into the ground, trying to be the financial breadwinner. And also I just constantly felt like I was trying to be mother or the sister or the father that I needed. And I'm doing that for myself. And naturally, of course, when you're trying to wear a million hats at once and navigate growing up, navigate your 20s, navigate adult responsibilities while never having a childhood, you hit a state of burnout. And I spent about 3 years in like slumber and extreme rest. And it got to a point where I truly thought that if I exerted myself any further, that I would simply die. I thought my heart was going to give out or explode. And thankfully, with my partner in a controlled and safe environment, I was able to actually explore what that looks like. And for us, that meant a lot of travel, getting myself out of the situations that I was in, not being in contact with my family or friends, and having true freedom for the first time in my life. And also to push myself physically. A lot of big hikes, seeing volcanoes, waterfalls. All of this was, one, being in connection with nature, but two, pushing my body further than I thought I could. And I think as well, it was really important for me to be in these situations where I can't constantly be contacted and relied upon by people around me that are used to using me or relying on me for that emotional support or therapy or regulation, and actually start doing that for myself because I'm in situations where I really must put myself first. My physical safety was really like in question in these moments for choices that I had made. So That for me was really enlightening. But in saying that, the chronic illnesses have left my body now, but that was over a decade of my life that I feel like was robbed because I was unable to emotionally regulate or recognize that I had needs, that I was allowed to have needs. And I think as well that was mirrored in early relationships that I had, constantly being told that I was too much, I was too emotional, and it was because I never had an outlet or an ability to actually express or have needs. And I realized that I could identify what everybody else was feeling, but it was very hard for me to unpack that on my own. And it was honestly buried under layers and layers of resentment, rage, sadness, confusion, which then brings me to the mirroring response. I think so many women develop a response called emotional mirroring, and that is not just because we're inherently women. That is what's demanded of us from the patriarchy and other structures in place that make sure women do the emotional labor. I noticed that around certain people, I would become quieter or more agreeable or more performative or more flamboyant, more bossy and sassy. It really just was whoever I was around. And once again, this led me to thinking, oh my God, am I autistic? Am I masking autistic? And the further I go down this path, the more confusing it becomes, deciphering what could be autistic traits or is just a reflection of childhood PTSD and mirroring and survival. And I think a lot of women experience this, where we get into our 20s, we start doing this unpacking and being like, who am I and where am I? Where do I fit right now? And I'm still on the journey of exploring that myself. Naturally, I was instinctively adapting to whoever I was around to maintain emotional safety and also a sense of belonging, because my nervous system learned very early on that if I can adapt to become what other people need, then I won't be abandoned. I will be included, I will be accepted, and most importantly, I will be loved. And from there, then you stop asking yourself, well, how do I feel? What do I need? What do I want out of this situation? And you just become so engrossed in what other people want. And it is such an exhausting way to live, because over time you end up losing touch with your authentic self. And many women quietly carry the grief of realizing, I don't know who I am outside of serving others. I think a prime example of that is my friendship groups have always been very split up. And not only that, I usually have one very close friend at a time and then a multitude of groups that I dip my toes in. And who I was around a particular group of people would really mirror what I thought they would want from me. And also, in every example, it has always looked like overextending myself, showing up to be like the best friend possible. And then, of course, naturally, it leads to a form of burnout and resentment where I feel like I've been used. And in a way I have been, but also I was the one showing up and extending myself. I'm the one covering dinners. I'm the one for paying for extravagant gifts. I'm the one showing up out of my own time. And I think as well, there's so much of that discourse around building a sense of community, especially when you don't necessarily have a family or a really strong support network. And I just constantly find myself in this cycle of overextending, burning out, feeling resentment and withdrawing, and starting that cycle again and again and again. And because I was playing this character, this cartoon constantly, I never truly felt seen for who I am. I think this is the reason why it hurts so deeply, because women are often socially rewarded for self-erasure, especially eldest daughters, because we are taught that femininity means endless emotional labor, endless understanding, sacrifice, accommodation, and therapy. And if you stop doing those things, that will lead to rejection, abandonment, not being loved, no sense of loyalty, at times even danger, and also this overwhelming sense of shame and guilt and this feeling of just, oh my God, I'm so selfish and evil. And because of that, so many women stay trapped in emotional abandonment, because for them, emotional abandonment means connection. And this idea that if I stop overgiving, then people will stop loving me. And in a way, I've kind of felt that to be true, because when I do set a boundary, when I stop showing up for that cartoon version of myself that I put first, people naturally feel like I'm switching up, that I'm being weird, I'm moving differently, that I am being a bitch now. And I'm aware of that because, once again, all I've ever learned is to emotionally attune to other people so I can feel that they feel that I've shifted. And that's what I mean. Honestly, this fear genuinely comes from somewhere real, because so many times I truly felt the most valued after I had overextended. It's never a sense of value I feel when I'm struggling, when I have needs, when I really need support. It's really when I am showing up for others the way I wish they showed up for me. If you're relating to anything in this video, I would love for you to comment down below so we can have some conversations, because I feel like so many women feel alone in this struggle and it's never spoken about enough. So drop a comment below. Let's chat about this. Let me know what you're relating to, and I would love to explore this further. What role did you play in your family? And were you always considered the emotionally mature one? Drop it in the comments below. The body keeps the score. What so many women don't realize is that self-abandonment eventually shows up in your body. And your body starts carrying everything that your voice never could say. Chronic anxiety, burnout, illness, autoimmune disorders, difficulty relaxing, feeling unsafe, disappointing people, or constantly being disappointed by people. And that's because your nervous system has been trained around external attunement. You were never taught how to feel safe in your own body or prioritize your own needs. I bet you do not know how to rest without guilt, and you do not know how to exist without performing usefulness. Healing often starts really small and not dramatically, and it can all start with just learning to think before you automatically say yes. Is this something you truly want to do, or is this your survival instinct, your nervous system screaming, yes, if I say yes, they'll love me. If I say yes, I'll be useful. Do you actually want to help? You actually want to be there? You're allowed to say no, because how many times do people say no for you? How many times did you need someone and they weren't there? Let's try and be aware of the resentment instead of repressing it. And I truly think as well that, back to what I was saying about my chronic illnesses, this was resentment eating my body alive. Let's start by asking ourselves, what do we want? What do we actually want from life? What do we want from friendships? What do we want from relationships? What does that look like? And what small steps do you actually have to take? Not what can we take, what do you have to take today in order to make that a reality? Also, allowing other people to exist without earning your worth. That one for me is almost near impossible. The idea of building a connection with someone and not overperforming. No, and I also, because it's such an inherent part of me and my being, it's really hard for me to just be, because I don't know what that looks like. I don't actually know who I am when I'm not overextending or performing or giving. Like, oh my God, that is so challenging. To me, it genuinely looks like cutting people off at the moment, right? Everyone's had too much access to me for far too long, and I've got to do the hard thing of cut people off and deal with the guilt. Also, not allowing people to come straight in, like for the best friend position, and me just like, once again, just overextending constantly. Oh my God, someone chain me up. Really, like, it's enough. And I also think that, like, in relationships in the very early stages, I feel like I'm almost a love bomber, but it comes from a different place where I'm not looking to manipulate them. I'm trying to just manipulate myself. Like, let me overextend and overperform, because it's almost like an investment that I'm trying to make. If I lay the foundation that this is the standard, this is everything I'm capable of doing, giving, investing, whether it be like energy, finances, whatever, then when I know that I'm abandoned or rejected or alone, hopefully that network can pour back into me. And do they ever? No, because that's not the foundation that's built. You're just crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy thing to pour so much into everyone else, not yourself, and then expect them to do that for you, because it's an imbalance, and it's toxic, and it is unhealthy. You need to build from healthy foundations, and it looks like having strong boundaries with other people and yourself, prioritizing yourself, your needs, your rest, saying no for the first time in your life, allowing yourself to be a bitch. Be a bitch, be selfish, disappoint people. And oh my God, it's gonna trigger your nervous system like crazy. And if you are capable of sitting with that long enough, then it becomes liberating. It's liberating, it's freeing, it's healing. Like, you see this time and time again. Bitches live longer, have happier lives, are more successful. The women that constantly give, and sacrifice are the ones that actually end up becoming real bitches, bitter, and just like used, walked all over. And whether that is in friendships or relationships or whatever, and it's so important that you realize this now and not in 5, 10, 15, 50 years time. The sooner that you start doing the unpacking and the labor of this, the better off you will be. And that leads me as well to love and connections. One of the biggest shifts in healing is realizing that love does not require self-sacrifice. And real love is never going to ask you to betray yourself. Real connections allow honesty, boundaries, needs, and complexity. And so many women, including myself, are grieving relationships where they were loved not for who they were, but what they could provide. Because there's a difference between being valued and being used for emotional regulation or finances or your generosity. And once you begin reconnecting with yourself, your relationships are going to change. And that can be really painful. But sometimes losing something means finding a new part of yourself. If you've spent your entire life emotionally carrying everyone around you, I want you to think about this. You are allowed to exist outside of what you're capable of doing for others. You're allowed to have needs, to rest, to disappoint people, to put yourself first, and stop performing emotional strength all of the time. And to every eldest daughter, I see you. I think there's something deeply healing about women finally having these conversations and admitting how exhausting this experience can be. And not because we hate caring, but because we were never meant to disappear inside of it. So if this resonated with you, I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What are you learning now? When did you realize that you've been abandoning yourself? What was the breaking point for you? I really want this space to be a place where women can come and have conversations, feel seen, accepted, loved, and just able to exist for what they are. And if you like this conversation and want to hear more from the Eldest Daughter Diaries, hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.